Sofia Bianchi had worked as a maid within Dante Marino's grand estate for nearly 2 years, quietly and efficiently managing the household's daily needs. She rarely interacted directly with Dante himself, understanding clearly the professional boundaries expected within her position, though she had always respected the fair, reasonable treatment she received from her employer. One ordinary afternoon, while finishing her usual cleaning duties near Dante's private office, Sofia's phone rang unexpectedly. She quickly stepped aside to answer quietly, assuming it was a routine call from her younger brother, Luca, checking in as he often did during her shifts. Instead, the voice on the other end was unfamiliar, cold and threatening. "Sofia Bianchi?" the voice asked coldly. "Yes," Sofia replied cautiously, unease immediately settling within her. "We have your brother," the voice said flatly. "He owes us a significant debt, one he's failed to repay. Unless you can provide the full amount within 24 hours, we can't guarantee his safety." Sofia's breath caught sharply, panic flooding through her instantly. "What debt? What are you talking about?" she demanded, voice trembling with fear and confusion. The voice remained coldly indifferent. "Your brother borrowed money from us months ago, promising repayment. He's failed repeatedly to honor that agreement. 24 hours, Ms. Bianchi. We'll be in touch." The line went dead abruptly, leaving Sofia standing frozen, her mind racing anxiously as she tried to process the terrifying situation. Tears immediately filled her eyes, overwhelming fear and helplessness crashing over her as she realized clearly the severity of her brother's danger. Unable to control her emotions any longer, Sofia sank quietly against the wall outside Dante's office, tears streaming freely down her face as she desperately tried to think of any way to help her brother, financially or otherwise. She had no way to gather such an enormous sum of money within 24 hours, her modest income barely covering their basic expenses. Inside his office, Dante Marino had been quietly reviewing business documents when he first noticed the muffled sound of quiet sobbing drifting through his slightly open door. Concerned, he rose from his desk, moving quietly toward the door to investigate. He found Sofia sitting against the wall outside his office, visibly distraught, tears streaming down her face as she clutched her phone tightly. Dante, though naturally guarded and controlled, felt immediate concern at the sight of her genuine distress. "Sofia," he said gently, kneeling carefully beside her. "What's happened?" Startled, Sofia quickly attempted to compose herself, embarrassment flooding through her at being discovered in such a vulnerable state. "I'm sorry, Mr. Marino," she said quickly, wiping her tears hastily. "It's nothing, really. I apologize for the disturbance." Dante studied her closely, clearly unconvinced by her hurried dismissal. "Please," he said gently but firmly, "tell me what's wrong. You're clearly distressed." Sofia hesitated, torn between her instinct toward privacy and the overwhelming fear consuming her. Finally, unable to contain her distress any longer, she broke down completely, explaining through tears the terrifying phone call she had just received, the danger her younger brother now faced, and the impossible debt demanded for his safe return. Dante listened carefully, his expression shifting subtly from concern into cold, controlled anger as Sofia explained the situation. "Do you know who exactly is holding your brother?" he asked calmly. Though a clear edge of controlled fury was evident beneath his measured tone, Sofia shook her head desperately. "No, I don't know anything more," she admitted, voice trembling. "I don't know how to find that kind of money in time." Dante studied her closely, determination hardening steadily within him. "You won't need to," he said firmly, his tone leaving no room for argument. "I'll handle this myself." Sofia looked up, confusion and disbelief evident clearly in her tear-filled eyes. "Mr. Marino, I couldn't possibly ask you to—" "You didn't ask," Dante interrupted gently but firmly. "And I'm offering. No one deserves to face this kind of terror alone, especially not someone who has served this household faithfully and honestly." Sofia stared at him, overwhelmed and uncertain how to respond to his unexpected decisive kindness. Before she could reply further, Dante rose calmly, already reaching for his phone, his expression hardening instantly into cold, in calculated fury. "Marco," he said sharply into the phone, addressing his trusted associate directly, "gather the team immediately. We have a serious situation to resolve, and I want answers within the hour." Sophia watched, stunned and uncertain, as Dante's calm, controlled demeanor shifted instantly into something far more intense and dangerous, his quiet anger transforming rapidly into decisive, calculated action. She realized clearly, watching him now, that she had unknowingly witnessed the beginning of something far more serious and consequential than she could have ever anticipated. Within an hour of Dante's urgent call, Marco arrived at the estate along with several trusted associates, their expressions serious and focused as they gathered quickly in Dante's office. Sophia, still shaken from the terrifying phone call, waited anxiously nearby, uncertain exactly what to expect from Dante's sudden, decisive intervention. "What do we know?" Dante asked firmly, addressing Marco directly as the team assembled. "Not much yet," Marco admitted honestly. "But given the details Sophia provided, this sounds like the work of a smaller, independent lending operation, likely operating outside any major family's territory. Predatory loan sharks who prey on desperate people." Dante's jaw tightened, controlled anger evident clearly beneath his composed exterior. "Find them," he ordered firmly. "I want their exact location, and I want it quickly." Marco nodded, quickly directing the team to begin tracing the call Sophia had received, along with investigating any recent activity connected to predatory lending operations within the city. Sophia, meanwhile, remained anxiously nearby, uncertain how to process the sudden, decisive action Dante had taken on her behalf. "Mr. Marino," she said quietly, approaching him cautiously as his men worked diligently nearby, "I don't know how to thank you for this. I never expected you to become personally involved." Dante studied her carefully, his expression softening slightly despite the seriousness of the situation. "Your brother's safety matters," he said simply. "No one should have to face this kind of danger alone, especially not someone under my care." Sophia felt a wave of gratitude and disbelief wash over her, though clear anxiety remained evident in her expression. "I'm still frightened," she admitted honestly. "I don't know if we'll be in time." Dante met her gaze directly, sincerity and determination clear in his own expression. "We will be," he reassured her firmly. "I promise you, Sophia, I won't allow harm to come to your brother." Within a few hours, Marco returned with promising information. "We've traced the number to a small, independent operation run by a man named Ricardo Vasquez," Marco reported. "They're holding your brother at a warehouse on the edge of the industrial district." Dante's expression hardened instantly, cold determination evident clearly in his gaze. "Prepare the team," he instructed firmly. "We move immediately." Sophia's heart pounded anxiously as she watched Dante and his men prepare swiftly for what she now understood would be a serious, potentially dangerous confrontation. "Please," she said softly, "be careful. I don't want anyone hurt because of me." Dante studied her closely, genuine warmth and reassurance evident clearly in his gaze, despite the seriousness of the situation. "This isn't your fault, Sophia," he said gently. "You've done nothing wrong. Let us handle this properly." As Dante and his men departed swiftly toward the warehouse, Sophia remained anxiously behind at the estate, her mind racing with worry and uncertainty. She paced nervously, unable to fully calm her racing thoughts as she awaited news of her brother's safety. Meanwhile, Dante's team arrived quietly at the warehouse, carefully assessing the situation before making their move. Marco reported quietly through his earpiece. 2 guards at the main entrance, minimal security elsewhere. "This looks like an amateur operation, boss." Dante nodded firmly, confidence evident clearly in his controlled expression. "Then we handle this quickly and decisively," he said firmly. "I want Luca out safely, and I want Ricardo Vasquez to understand clearly that targeting innocent families connected to my household will never be tolerated again." Moving swiftly and precisely, Dante's men quickly overwhelmed the minimal security outside the warehouse. Moving carefully inside to locate Luca, they found him quickly, frightened but physically unharmed. Tied cautiously to a chair in a dimly lit back room, Dante personally entered the room, calm authority evident clearly in his expression as he addressed the young man directly. "Luca," he said gently, "you're safe now. We're getting you out of here." Luca, visibly relieved yet confused by Dante's unexpected intervention, nodded quickly as Dante's men carefully freed him from his restraints. "Thank you," Luca said shakily, gratitude evident clearly in his voice. "I don't understand who you are, but thank you." "A friend of your sister's," Dante replied simply, already moving to secure Luca's safe passage out of the warehouse. As they prepared to leave, Ricardo Vasquez, informed quickly of the unexpected intrusion, attempted a desperate confrontation only to be swiftly subdued and detained by Dante's experienced men. Dante studied him coldly, his tone leaving no room for misunderstanding. "You've made a serious mistake targeting someone connected to my household," Dante said firmly, cold authority evident clearly in his tone. "Consider this your only warning. If you or your associates ever attempt something like this again, the consequences will be far more severe." Ricardo nodded quickly, clear fear evident in his expression, understanding immediately the seriousness of Dante's warning. With the immediate threat neutralized and Luca safely rescued, Dante's team quickly departed the warehouse, relief evident clearly among them at the successful, decisive resolution of the dangerous situation. As Dante personally escorted Luca back toward the estate, he found himself reflecting quietly on the unexpected chain of events that had unfolded since first hearing Sofia's distress outside his office. He hadn't anticipated becoming so deeply, personally invested in resolving her family's crisis. Yet he found himself genuinely satisfied and relieved at having successfully protected someone who had quietly earned his respect and admiration through her hard-working, honest dedication. Sofia had grown up faster than most children her age, forced into responsibility far earlier than she ever expected. Her parents had passed away in a tragic accident when she was only 17, leaving her suddenly responsible for raising her younger brother, Luca, who had been just 12 years old at the time. With no other close family able to help, Sofia had quickly taken on the role of both sister and guardian, working multiple jobs simultaneously to ensure Luca had stability, food, and a proper education, despite the overwhelming grief and responsibility suddenly thrust upon her. She had sacrificed her own dreams of attending university, instead focusing entirely on providing for her younger brother's well-being. Luca, though deeply grateful for his sister's sacrifices, had struggled significantly with the loss of their parents, often feeling guilty for the burden his care placed upon Sofia. As he grew older, he had attempted several times to find work himself, eager to relieve some of the financial pressure from his sister's shoulders, though his efforts had often ended in disappointment due to his limited experience and qualifications. Desperate to contribute financially, Luca had eventually turned to a seemingly simple loan from Ricardo Vasquez's operation, believing naively it would help cover some unexpected medical expenses without burdening Sofia further. Unfortunately, he hadn't fully understood the predatory nature of the loan, quickly finding himself trapped under impossible interest rates and escalating debt he had no realistic way of repaying. Sofia, unaware of Luca's secret financial struggles, had continued working diligently as a maid within Dante's estate, quietly building a stable, respectable position despite her own limited opportunities. She had always been careful to maintain her privacy regarding her difficult family history, preferring to focus entirely on her work rather than burdening others with her personal struggles. Now, following the dramatic rescue of her brother, Sofia found herself reflecting deeply on the painful history that had led them both to this frightening situation. She felt immense guilt, realizing she hadn't noticed Luca's silent struggles sooner, wishing desperately she could have protected him from such a dangerous mistake. Meanwhile, back at the estate, Dante's investigation into Ricardo Vasquez's operation continued, driven by his own cautious instincts regarding such predatory lending schemes. Marco approached him quietly one evening, concern evident clearly in his expression. "Boss, we've uncovered something concerning," Marco reported carefully. "Vasquez's operation wasn't entirely independent, as we initially believed. He's been quietly backed financially by a larger, more dangerous figure." Dante's expression sharpened instantly, cold seriousness evident clearly in his gaze. "Who exactly is backing him?" he asked firmly. Marco hesitated slightly before responding. "Preliminary evidence points toward Callahan Reyes, a powerful loan shark operating discreetly across several cities, known for using smaller operations like Vasquez's to quietly expand his influence without drawing direct attention." Dante considered this new information carefully, understanding clearly the potential complications this revelation introduced. "If Reyes is involved, this situation is far from resolved," he said seriously. "Vasquez's silence was likely bought, and now that we've directly confronted his operation, Reyes may retaliate to protect his interests." Marco nodded, clear concern evident in his expression. "We should proceed cautiously, boss. Reyes has resources and influence that could complicate things significantly." Dante's jaw tightened, determination hardening within him despite the seriousness of this new threat. "I won't allow Sofia or Luca to face further danger because of my involvement," he said firmly. "We need to understand exactly what we're dealing with before Reyes decides to act." As Marco departed to gather further intelligence, Dante found himself reflecting seriously on the unexpected complications arising from his decision to personally intervene in Sofia's family crisis. Despite the growing danger, he remained resolute, determined to protect Sofia and her brother from any further threat, regardless of the challenges ahead. Later that evening, Dante visited Sofia privately, wanting to update her honestly about this new complication. "Sofia," he began carefully, "I need to share something important regarding your brother's situation." Sofia studied him closely, anxiety evident clearly in her expression. "What is it?" she asked nervously. Dante took a steadying breath before explaining honestly. "Vasquez wasn't operating entirely alone," he said seriously. "He's connected to a more dangerous figure, someone who may not simply let this situation end quietly." Sofia's breath caught sharply, fear evident clearly in her eyes. "Does this mean Luca is still in danger?" she asked anxiously. Dante took her hand gently, sincerity clear in his gaze. "I won't let that happen," he reassured her firmly. "But we need to proceed carefully and decisively to ensure both you and Luca remain completely safe." As their conversation concluded that evening, both Dante and Sofia understood clearly that the danger surrounding Luca's situation was far from over, setting the stage for a more serious and dangerous confrontation that would soon test Dante's resolve and protective determination even further. In the days following his conversation with Sofia about Callahan Reyes, Dante found himself increasingly preoccupied with ensuring her safety, his usual guarded, business-focused demeanor giving way gradually to genuine personal concern. He arranged discreet, additional security around the estate, careful never to alarm Sofia unnecessarily, while his men continued gathering intelligence on Reyes's operations and potential intentions. Sofia, meanwhile, found herself grappling with a complicated mixture of gratitude, guilt, and growing admiration for Dante's evident, genuine concern for her family's well-being. She continued her usual duties around the estate, though she often found herself seeking out small opportunities to speak with him, appreciating the quiet, thoughtful conversations that had begun developing between them. "You didn't have to go this far for us," she said one afternoon, finding him reviewing security reports quietly in his office. "I still don't fully understand why you've taken such a personal interest in helping Luca and me." Dante looked up, considering her question thoughtfully before responding honestly. "You've worked here faithfully for 2 years," he said sincerely. I've always respected your quiet dedication and integrity, even before this situation arose. Seeing you in such distress, I couldn't simply stand by and do nothing. Sophia studied him carefully, warmth and gratitude evident clearly in her expression. Still, this has become far more complicated and dangerous than either of us anticipated, she said honestly. I worry about the risks you're taking on our behalf. Dante offered a small, reassuring smile. I've faced dangerous situations before, he said calmly. What matters most now is ensuring you and Luca remain safe, regardless of the complications involved. Their conversations continued deepening over the following days. Dante finding himself increasingly drawn towards Sophia's quiet strength, resilience, and genuine warmth, qualities he rarely encountered within his own guarded, often calculated world. He began looking forward to these small, meaningful exchanges, appreciating the genuine connection developing steadily between them, despite the serious circumstances surrounding their situation. One evening, as Marco reported new developments regarding Callahan Reyes, Dante realized clearly the importance of being fully transparent with Sophia about the seriousness of the ongoing threat. Sophia, he began carefully, finding her finishing her evening duties, I think it's important you understand exactly what we're facing regarding Reyes. Sophia paused, concern evident clearly in her expression. Please tell me everything, she said firmly. I'd rather understand the full situation than be kept in the dark. Dante nodded, appreciating her directness. Reyes has significant resources and influence, he explained honestly. Now that we've directly confronted Vasquez's operation, it's likely Reyes will see this as a challenge to his authority, potentially escalating matters further. Sophia absorbed this information carefully, fear and determination mixing within her expression. What does that mean for Luca and me? She asked directly. Dante considered his response seriously. It means we need to remain vigilant and cautious, he said firmly. But I promise you, Sophia, I won't allow Reyes to threaten your safety or Luca's. Regardless of the risks involved, Sophia studied him closely, admiration and growing trust evident clearly in her gaze. Thank you for being honest with me, she said sincerely. It means a great deal, especially given how much you've already done for us. Dante found himself unexpectedly moved by her genuine gratitude, warmth spreading through him in a way he hadn't experienced in quite some time. I care about your safety, Sophia, he admitted honestly, surprising even himself with his own sincerity, more than simply as an employer concerned for an employee's well-being. Sophia felt her heart flutter slightly at his sincere admission, though she remained cautious, aware clearly of the complicated circumstances surrounding their situation. I've noticed that as well, she admitted softly, though I've been uncertain how to interpret it. Given everything else happening around us, Dante studied her carefully, genuine warmth and sincerity evident clearly in his gaze. Perhaps once we've resolved this threat completely, he suggested gently, we can explore what this connection between us truly means. Without the pressure and danger currently surrounding us, Sophia nodded, cautious optimism evident clearly in her expression. I'd like that, she said softly, genuine warmth evident clearly in her own tone, as their conversation concluded that evening. Both Dante and Sophia understood clearly that their growing connection would need to withstand the serious challenges still ahead. As Callahan Reyes's true intentions regarding their recent confrontation with Vasquez remained dangerously uncertain, Callahan Reyes had grown increasingly frustrated after learning of Vasquez's humiliating defeat at the hands of Dante Marino's men. Recognizing clearly that his own operations and reputation were now at stake, Reyes decided a direct, forceful response was necessary to reassert his dominance and discourage any further interference from Dante's organization. Marino thinks he can simply walk into my territory and dismantle my operations without consequence, Reyes said coldly during a private meeting with his most trusted associates. We need to remind him clearly that actions have consequences. His men exchanged uneasy glances, aware clearly of the seriousness behind Reyes's calculated determination. How do you intend to respond? One associate asked cautiously. We take the girl, Reyes replied firmly. Not the brother this time. Marino has clearly shown personal interest in her safety. If we take her directly, it forces him into a corner, weakening his position and reputation among his own men. Meanwhile, unaware of Reyes's dangerous plan, Sofia continued her usual routine at the estate, comforted somewhat by the increased security Dante had arranged discreetly around her. Despite these precautions, however, Reyes's men proved patient, carefully observing her movements, waiting for an opportunity to strike. That opportunity arose one afternoon when Sofia, running a brief errand outside the estate's usual security perimeter, found herself unexpectedly vulnerable. Reyes's men moved swiftly, intercepting her quietly before her security detail could properly respond, quickly forcing her into a waiting vehicle. When Dante received urgent news of Sofia's abduction, fury and fear, unlike anything his men had previously witnessed, erupted within him instantly. How did this happen? He demanded furiously, though guilt and concern colored his tone deeply. Marco quickly reported the details, clearly shaken by the security lapse. She stepped briefly outside her usual protected area, he explained grimly. Reyes's men were clearly waiting patiently for exactly this opportunity. Dante's jaw tightened, determination hardening instantly within him. Find her immediately, he ordered firmly. I don't care what resources it takes. We're bringing her home safely now. Dante's men quickly mobilized, tracing Sofia's abduction carefully through witnesses and available security footage, working tirelessly to pinpoint exactly where Reyes's men had taken her. Meanwhile, held captive within an isolated property, Sofia sat anxiously, her mind racing as she desperately tried to remain calm despite overwhelming fear. Reyes eventually entered the room, studying her carefully, calculated coldness evident clearly in his expression. Miss Bianchi, he said smoothly, I apologize for the inconvenience, but your connection to Dante Marino makes you quite valuable to my current situation. Sofia studied him carefully, fear evident clearly beneath her forced composure. What do you want? She asked, voice trembling slightly. Simply respect, Reyes replied coldly. Marino needs to understand clearly that interfering in my business carries serious consequences. Your safety depends entirely on how quickly he chooses to acknowledge that. Sofia's fear intensified rapidly. Though she drew quiet strength from the growing trust and connection she had built with Dante, meanwhile, back in the city, Dante's men finally identified Reyes's exact location. A secured property along the outskirts, carefully guarded yet vulnerable to a swift, decisive approach. We move immediately, Dante instructed firmly, his expression resolute despite the danger clearly ahead. I won't allow Reyes another moment to threaten her safety. Dante's forces moved swiftly and decisively under cover of night, surrounding the property carefully before launching a coordinated, forceful rescue operation. Brief, intense gunfire erupted as Dante's men quickly overwhelmed Reyes's guards, moving swiftly toward the room where Sofia was held captive. Dante personally rushed toward her, relief flooding through him instantly upon finding her frightened but unharmed. Sofia, he said urgently, quickly freeing her from her restraints. Are you hurt? Sofia shook her head, tears of relief streaming down her face. I'm okay, she whispered shakily. You came. I promised I would. Dante reassured her firmly, gently pulling her into a protective embrace. I won't let anything happen to you. As they moved quickly toward safety, Reyes, recognizing his defeat, attempted a desperate escape, only to be swiftly intercepted and captured by Dante's men. His dangerous scheme against Sofia and Dante's organization finally coming to its complete and decisive end. Breathing heavily, adrenaline slowly fading, Sofia turned toward Dante, gratitude and relief evident clearly in her tearful expression. Thank you, she whispered softly, for finding me, for keeping your promise. Dante held her closely, warmth and relief evident clearly in his own expression. I'll always protect you, Sofia, he said softly, no matter what danger arises. As they finally returned safely toward the estate, Both Dante and Sophia understood clearly that their bond had grown even stronger through this dangerous ordeal, setting the stage for an important, life-changing decision about their future together. In the days following Sophia's rescue, Dante ensured Callahan Reyes's defeat became permanent, using the evidence gathered from his failed kidnapping attempt to expose his operations clearly to other influential figures within the city's criminal landscape. Facing mounting pressure and abandoned by former associates unwilling to be connected to his reckless actions, Reyes's influence collapsed rapidly, ending his ability to threaten Sophia or her family ever again. With the danger fully resolved, Dante finally allowed himself to focus on what truly mattered to him, Sophia's well-being and the genuine connection that had developed steadily between them throughout this dangerous ordeal. Luca, grateful and relieved that his sister was finally safe, expressed his own heartfelt gratitude toward Dante for his decisive intervention. "I don't know how to properly thank you," Luca said sincerely, meeting with Dante privately at the estate. "You've done so much for both of us." Dante offered a genuine smile, warmth evident clearly in his expression. "Your sister has shown remarkable dedication and integrity since she began working here," he said honestly. "Protecting both of you felt like the right thing to do, regardless of the complications involved." Luca nodded, appreciation evident clearly in his expression. "I promise I'll be more careful moving forward," he said sincerely. "I never wanted to put Sophia in danger." Dante studied him seriously, though genuine understanding was evident clearly in his tone. "We all make mistakes trying to help those we love," he said kindly. "What matters now is moving forward together more carefully and honestly." Later that evening, Dante found Sophia quietly finishing her duties in the estate's peaceful garden, the same place where they had first begun truly connecting during this challenging ordeal. "Sophia," he said softly, approaching her carefully, "now that the danger has passed, I'd like to discuss something important." Sophia turned, warmth and curiosity evident clearly in her expression. "What is it?" she asked gently. Dante took a deep breath, sincerity clear in his gaze. "These past weeks have shown me clearly how deeply I've come to care for you," he admitted honestly. "Not simply as someone I felt obligated to protect, but as someone I've genuinely grown to love and admire." Sophia felt tears of happiness forming gently in her eyes, overwhelmed by his genuine heartfelt admission. "I felt the same way, Dante," she admitted softly. "Though I never expected to find such genuine connection and safety within your world." Dante smiled warmly, taking her hands gently in his own. "I'd like the opportunity to build something real and meaningful with you, Sophia," he said sincerely. "Free from the complications and danger that first brought us together." Sophia nodded, happiness and relief evident clearly in her expression. "I'd like that very much," she said softly. Genuine warmth evident clearly in her own tone. In the months that followed, Dante and Sophia built a genuine, meaningful relationship together, grounded firmly in mutual respect, gratitude, and shared trust. Sophia continued her work at the estate, though her role gradually expanded as Dante involved her more closely in overseeing the household's affairs, appreciating deeply her intelligence, integrity, and quiet strength. Luca, meanwhile, found stable, legitimate employment with Dante's assistance, grateful for the opportunity to rebuild his life honestly, free from the desperate circumstances that had once led him toward dangerous, predatory lending schemes. Reflecting quietly one peaceful evening, sitting together in the same garden where their genuine connection had first blossomed, Sophia considered deeply the remarkable, unexpected journey that had transformed her life so completely since that terrifying phone call outside Dante's office. What had begun as a desperate, tearful moment of fear and helplessness had transformed completely into something Sophia had never imagined possible. Genuine safety, love, and a meaningful future built through mutual respect, gratitude, and the unexpected kindness of a man whose quiet strength had ultimately turned devastating fear into lasting hope.